Hello, I'm Brenda Schivito. Welcome to You Are Not Alone, the place for news, tips, and stories of hope for people battling the disease of addiction. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we are coming to you today by way of Zoom. Although we are social distancing, I'm pleased to welcome my guest, Brandt Norton. He is the founder of the Pennsylvania Recovery Center and the Phoenix Recovery Project in Phoenixville. He is here today to share his experience with addiction and recovery, how he came to serve others in the recovery community. We will also discuss how COVID-19 has impacted the recovery community. Brandt, it's my deepest pleasure to welcome you to the show, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Brenda.
Oh, it's my pleasure indeed. If you could just take some time, a little bit of time to share with us your experience with addiction and now recovery and how it came to be that you are now serving others with addiction.
Sure, absolutely. I'd love to. So I'm from Pennsylvania originally. I grew up in Media, PA. You had a really good family. Nothing really traumatic happened or anything like that. I had every opportunity in the world, like it was just a really nice upbringing. I had certain things like everybody, like there's always something that goes on, but I was very like anxious, depressed kid from day one. I don't know why, but even growing up in my own household, like I was afraid to come down the steps. It didn't really make sense. But anyway, as I grew, I saw my family drink alcohol, and it was like a normal thing. I'm saying to myself, "Oh, that looks fun," and I don't. Maybe I should try that because they seem like they're relaxed and all that. I'm not blaming my family at
No, of
all.
course not.
That's just what I was, in my childhood mind, what I was thinking at the time to deal with what I was feeling. I didn't really know how to deal with what I was feeling or to verbalize or communicate that.
Sure.
So I tried alcohol for the first time, probably around 12 or 13, and I got drunk immediately, and it was like a whole new world opened up. Like I felt like I could talk to people, I could girls, I could be the guy I wanted to be, like all that stuff
Right.
just went away. It was like fireworks went off, and from there it just slowly got worse. Like I started to experiment, with different things in school. Like before ninth grade, I was taking shots of whiskey 7 in the morning before going into school, stuff like that.
Mm.
Then it just kept progressing. My family didn't really know about it; they had no clue. Got introduced to other kinds of drug, opiates, specifically Percocet, OxyContin. Um, tried pretty much everything under the sun that I could, anything I could do to escape that internal pain that I was feeling. Some people say it's genetic. I agree with that partly, but my family, I have three brothers and two sisters and one brother, and they don't have a problem with addiction. They had the same upbringing as me. So I don't like to make excuses or anything like that.
Right.
Just, this is just my story. This is my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know there's people out there that had way worse stuff happen to them, and they're not an addict or an alcoholic. But it's my story, and I'm grateful that I am. It ended up transforming my life to be insanely good. I can't even describe it. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But what happened was my father was actually diagnosed with lung cancer while I was in college. Somehow I made it to college. I don't know how. It was a miracle because I was using drugs and alcohol like crazy, throughout high school. And my father got diagnosed with lung cancer, and over the next 4 years, he slowly got worse, and then so did I. It was like we were each other. Although, addiction gets kind of a bad rap. I hear people all the time say like it's a choice, like you chose to be that way, and that's just not true. It's there's science behind it. There's a lot of research and education, and that's part like what I like to share whenever I speak is this is a chronic relapsing brain disorder. It's not
Mhm.
something that, just I had a bad day and got addicted. Like this developed over a period of time and it became so entrenched into my life, to my body, to my brain, to my soul that there was no choice anymore. I didn't have a choice whether I used drugs or alcohol or not. I really didn't. Like, who would realistically or honestly, say, "Hey, I'm going to drain my bank account today." That
Right.
doesn't sound like a good idea. Like, or I'm going to ruin every relationship I have. Like,
Yeah.
where I'm going to drop out of school, or I'm going to get my car repossessed or lose my house. Like, these are all the ugly symptoms of addiction that why no one in their right mind would choose that.
Right.
That's why I like to point that out, like how it is mental, physical, spiritual. There's all different aspects to it, and
Sure.
they all treated accordingly. But
Sure.
anyway, my dad ended up passing away. He ended up dying from lung
Mhm.
cancer. What's crazy was he wasn't a smoker. It just happened.
Sure.
And that made me just one dive off the cliff of addiction. It just got way worse. I ended up homeless.
Mm.
You know, not welcome in my family's house. Lost everything imaginable.
Right.
Um, and that's when I started to go into rehabs and outpatients and institutions. And it just that's and luckily, that's when I was exposed to recovery. And I like to say the word exposed because you can't really force somebody into recovery. That's
Yeah.
really the best we can do is what you like to do, which is create recovery awareness and say
Right.
like it's possible to get better
Sure.
and your life can change. You can put the substances down and you can live a happy and fulfilled life without drugs and alcohol. And
Sure.
that's what happened. I got exposed to it. I've been sober over 10 years now.
Great.
I got
That's
sober at
great.
a young age, at the age of 22. Like I
Mhm.
said, my family loved me a lot. And I want to point out that, I'm from this area. My mom actually was the uh, assistant to the superintendent for Radnor School District. So
Mhm.
there you go. It doesn't care who or what you are or where you're
Sure.
from or what kind of job you have. Like
Doesn't matter.
it's gonna
Doesn't
it's
matter.
gonna affect you either way.
Doesn't
Um,
matter.
but as soon as I got into recovery, I just people always ask for like how you did it, and for me it was real simple. I just completely surrendered. Like I was done. I was in so
Right.
much. I
Right.
just gave up the fight, and I
Mhm.
decided that I wasn't gonna do what I did anymore because that
Right.
always ended up bad. So I ended up just taking every single suggestion that was given, even the ones I didn't like, honestly.
Mm.
I
Right.
ended up in Florida, living in a recovery house
Mhm.
for a year, walking to work, taking the bus to work, doing very humbling acts just to kind of rebuild my life. And
Right.
every single day it's gotten better. Like I've owned homes, I've bought cars, but I restore the relationships with my family. But the most important thing for me today is I have peace. I don't think about using drugs or alcohol. That's like another thing people always ask, like, oh, it must be a daily battle. It's not. As
Right.
soon as you go through the process, it's pretty easy. It's just getting through
Good.
that process, which is the hard part.
Good. So now fast forward to where you are today. You are the founder of the Pennsylvania Recovery Center
Yes.
and Phoenix Recovery Project,
Yes.
and you have 4 recovery homes in that network, and they're in Phoenixville, in the Phoenixville area.
Yes.
So you obviously found that there was a need to serve from within yourself, and you've opened these homes and this center. Can you tell us a little bit about, so for people who don't know, we know what a recovery home is, but what is the Pennsylvania Recovery Center? Give us a couple of minutes to tell us what that's about.
Sure. Like you mentioned, it's all about giving back and helping others, serving others. That's a really big part of my life today. I wouldn't be anywhere without it. And that came from like within. I couldn't even tell you why or when it came, but I
It's
knew that
called
was
to
my
do.
purpose early
Right.
on. Even in my addiction, I knew I wanted to help people.
Right.
But so in my recovery house that I went to in that first year of recovery, I had that deep desire to give back. I knew one day I wanted to open up my own facility and my own recovery homes back in my hometown because I felt like there was a need, and we looked at Phoenixville, specifically Chester County, because you couldn't find a recovery house in Chester County. And it's like, we
Right.
know that there's addiction in Chester County,
Yes,
100%.
there is.
There's
Mm-hmm.
there's overdoses every day. So that's kind of why we looked at this area. It's not far from where I live, so it seemed like a great idea. And in order to have the most success, that recover to get into recovery, it has to be a long-term process. It's not just going to happen overnight. Like for me, I used for 10 years. So, and then a lot of these rehabs are designed to only be 30 days.
Right.
So 10 years against 30 days, who do you think's going to win? It's pretty simple in my opinion. So that's why we created this as an aftercare program. Pennsylvania Recovery Center handles all the therapy. So we do outpatient groups, individual sessions. We have a doctor on site who does medication management, psych evals. We have case managers. We have behavioral health technicians who transport people where they need to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's a kind of like a wraparound service. Like anything you need, that's what we're going to help you with.
That's great. That's
We
great.
do 12-step
Well,
meetings. I'm sitting in the center right now. Behind me, you can see the
yeah,
12 steps on the wall.
that's great.
Um, and we partnered that with the Phoenix Recovery Project, which is our recovery homes, which
Mm-hmm.
have is so crucial because the people who live in the houses have so much of a better chance of success because they're in an environment where they're with other people that are trying to get sober, and we have our staff there to support and guide them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's rules, there's structure, there's drug testing, there's just a lot more accountability at
Right.
the houses than you can get at home. A lot of our families that we deal with, it's our job to educate them because they just don't know. They don't know how to deal with it. And it kind of makes sense then that when they do go back home after rehab, why there's such a struggle to get into it. You need
Right.
to. It's like changing your life, changing
Sure.
your lifestyle. You have to immerse yourself in it, or it's not going to change.
Sure, sure, absolutely. So you provide all these services. You have a full variety of services that all go along with recovery, which is wonderful. Now let's fast forward from everything going pretty well with the recovery center, the recovery homes. Things are plugging along, and then COVID hits.
Hmm.
COVID-19, of course, this pandemic we're still in. Um, we are ordered to stay in place, hunker down and shelter in place. And, we all have experienced this, and it has affected all of us in different ways. But specifically, can you talk about when that happened, how did that impact the recovery home and the residents living there? Can you take us through that?
Sure. Like I'm a naturally empathetic person and try to put myself in other people's shoes, and it just was like devastating. Like I saw my whole life flash before my eyes because I was like, this is my dream. I just started it, and I'm gonna have to lose it. And all these guys that are in my houses, they might lose their recovery, and if you lose your recovery, you might lose your life. So it was just like a lot of we didn't know what was going to happen. And, we just kind of went back to our values of just like having faith and trusting in the process. A lot of what we teach here.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys did lose their jobs. A lot of guys, didn't have money to eat. They didn't have money to even buy a mask. It just affected so many different things. We didn't know how we were going to pay our rent for the center or for the recovery house. We were just totally, lost. But we knew that like as long as we were doing the right thing, that hopefully something good was happened. And I just wanted to give a shout out to you, Brenda, and your organization because it was like a gift from God, Angels Against Addiction, and a couple other nonprofits. They out of the blue, like we were in this crisis pandemic, like had no clue what to do. I got an email one day and they're like, hey, we want to consider your house as a grantee. We're going to do a recovery house grant so that you guys can keep your doors open. And it was like, it was amazing. So we filled out the paperwork and ended up getting the recovery house grant from you and from, your friends at the other nonprofits. And we wouldn't be here today. I really think we would have to close our doors, and who knows what would have happened, because, it was such a un, un,
Unsure time.
yeah, unsure. It was
Right.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we were happy to do it. Myself and Steps for Hope and the Fight and Frankie Foundation, we band forces together and put forth grant money to not only Phoenix Recovery but other communities in the Delaware and Chester counties, and we were happy to do that. We were able to do that, and we know how important the recovery centers are and the homes are to the residents there, and knew we needed to do something rather than seeing these houses closed due to the unemployment, due to the lack of funding coming in, and we just know how vitally important these recovery homes are to our community. So we were just happy to be able to do that. So what was happening like inside of the house, inside of the homes during this crisis? I mean, tell us a little bit about how the residents were managing and what was actually going on inside the recovery homes.
Yeah, there was a lot of fear, because you're new in recovery and now you have another disease. We're already dealing with addiction and now we have something else we have to worry about. You can't work, you can't leave the house, you can't go to your 12-step meetings, which are so important. You can't meet with your sponsor to go through the 12 steps. So it was like,
Right.
it was a mess. So the guys really were reeling, but we are a community and we tried to band together. So some of the things we did was, we always were continuing our in-house meetings. We were doing daily temperature checks, sanitizing the house as often and as much as we could. Providing masks for the guys, cleaning supplies, everything they really needed to keep the morale up. We got them hooked up with all the Zoom meetings in the area. That was one positive thing is that did come out of this was people realized that, like, yeah, you can recover from home. It's not,
Right.
you
Right.
know, it's the same thing, really. It's just as long as your mind and heart's in the right place, like it can, it
It can be
can,
done.
yeah.
It can be done. Right. We talked a little bit about this before, but what was going on kind of on the flip side of the recovery community at large, like people who um, we know how this pandemic has affected people mentally, emotionally, or maybe people aren't aware of that. Give us some information about what you see about people who may have been active in addiction or maybe addicted for the first time. What mentally, how does that correlate with like the idea of isolation? And we even talked about, unfortunately, suicide.
Yeah, suicide rates definitely went up, mental health issues, um, relapse rates. People just, they didn't really know that because there was so much uncertainty, they didn't know that they could reach out for help. So, like,
Mm.
our phone really, like, we get calls all the time now, but when this first happened, it was like the phone stopped ringing. So,
Mm.
that's our job here is to help people new that are addicted to get into recovery. So it was kind of like a shock. It was like, well, where are these people going? Then I'm looking on Facebook and, the liquor stores are
Mm.
being shut down. So there's all this worry about people going into withdrawal. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I see posts in these different groups that I'm in, recovery based groups, and people are asking, like, hey, are the rehabs open? Can I get into detox? Like, there was just a lot of information that wasn't out in the community. And
Mm-hmm.
people, unfortunately, I think maybe used it as an excuse not to get help. And that can be deadly. Like, addiction is not something that we're going to wait around and it's going to get better. Like, we need to take significant action right away.
Right, right. So it was like a pandemic within an epidemic, which we know is addiction. So you've weathered the storm, obviously. Your center now is open. I guess would we call it like an outpatient? Can we
Yes.
call it an outpatient center that has reopened? Or
Yes.
was that open through the whole pandemic?
Yeah, it was open, but it was very limited. Like we
Right.
couldn't in person, obviously. So we were using the Zoom technology to do therapy with our clients, not only in our houses but in the community as well. And we actually started a 24/7 peer support hotline that was disseminated in the Phoenixville community for anyone that just needed somebody to talk to. We
Oh,
put it out there so that they could call us and just, they just talk. They didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to make any commitments or anything. If they just wanted
right.
to talk about their problem, we were
Hmm.
there.
Hmm. And so what's happening with the center, like where you are now? What's it currently? What are you doing? How are you operating now?
We're back in person, which is great. We started that about a week or two ago.
Mhm.
Uh, with the kind of opening up of other businesses, we kind of just followed the governor's orders and the CDC recommendations. So, all our clients are wearing masks. We're social distancing. We're sanitizing the building pretty frequently. We're doing the temperature checks and just
Mhm.
monitoring everybody's symptoms. We're lucky that we have a doctor on staff, so he kind of helps lead us in the right direction as far as safety is concerned and mental and physical health. And it's
Right.
been going good though. I mean, so far we haven't seen any cases show up at our doors. God willing, that'll stay that way.
Right, right. And how about the houses? How are they operating now? Now we're getting into the green means go, but green means, even go means to go cautiously. How does life look? What does it look like in the houses at this point?
Yeah, it's definitely getting better. I mean, with things opening up, guys are getting out a little bit more. The meetings have started, so you can go back to in-person 12-step meetings. Doesn't have to be Zoom. I like
Hmm.
Zoom. I think it's a great tool we can use for maybe people who can't leave their house even
Right.
after the pandemic ends. They just their jobs are starting to come back.
Mhm.
We're getting more people with who are ready to work, and we have the workforce available. So, it's
Mhm.
progressing pretty good so far, and hopefully it'll stay that way. We had one scare at the house with somebody who might have had it, but ended up being taken care of pretty good, and no one in the house contracted any COVID-19, which was awesome.
Well, congratulations for that. Because I mean, how many beds do you have across the four houses?
We put 42 beds.
Wow. So that's, 42 in four houses. And yeah, that's a lot of close knitness there. So good. You guys did a great job and to be commended for that. So in the house now, I'm assuming you're still going to continue with deep cleans or temperature checks and all that good stuff periodically, like every day, or are you kind of like scaling back on that? How's that working?
Yeah, we're still kind of just whatever the recommendations are, the CDC, that's what we're continuing to do just to be safe. It's better safe than sorry, because it could happen, it could happen. And it only takes one person in the house to get sick, and then the rest of the guys in that house are at risk. And then they socialize with the other guys, or they go to work, or they go see their families. Like it's
Mhm.
it's a very still uncertain time. We're taking it seriously. We're not,
Right.
kind of scaling it back or saying like, hey, you can go here without wearing your mask. Like our guys, it's
Mhm.
even part of our structure. Like if you want to be in this house, like you're not gonna you're not allowed to go to a business without a mask on, that kind of thing.
Sure, sure.
For safety.
So, what are your thoughts now going forward as we move? We're into this green phase, and let's say in the next few months, do you see the ripple effect from the pandemic? Do you feel, what do you feel that's going to do to our communities at large with regards to with addiction? Do you feel as though, do we see this as something that's going to be a ripple effect over the next 6 months with addiction, with what should I say? I don't even want. I guess PTSD almost from this mental these mental effects that have wreaked havoc on people. Do you see this as being another grave concern that we have at large? What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
yeah, I think it's just it's kept people from getting the help that they need, and and it's still, and it's, mind you, it's a very good excuse. It's like, I don't want to go there because if I go to rehab, I might be exposed to it. But that's just not true. There's a lot of misinformation about the disease, and how these rehabs are taking the precautions like ours
Right.
to keep people safe. And they
Mhm.
can do it better because they have all these rooms and beds, they can isolate people. So it is safe to help anyone that's watching this that feels like they, or has a family member. It is safe to go and ask for help. That's
Mhm.
the biggest message I want to kind of put out there.
Good, good. So help is available. You're fully operational at the Pennsylvania Recovery Center and also at the recovery homes. You're still fully operational
Yes.
with room for other people to take advantage of the services. That's great. That's great. Okay. Well, I'm so excited that you were able to come and join us today. Um, if people need to get a hold of you or get in touch with you, how could they reach out? You have a website and maybe a
Yeah.
phone contact.
Yeah, so they can find us online at www.parecoverycenter.com. Our
Mhm.
admissions line is 24/7, and the phone number is 610-233-4342. Or if you're shy about talking on the phone, you can send an email to admissions@parecoverycenter.com.
That's great. Well, I really appreciate you being here. I can't say enough, giving you thanks and paying you homage for the work that you do in the recovery community, and especially there in Phoenixville. You've accomplished quite a bit and something to be very proud of, Brandt. And we are very thrilled that you were here with us today. Um, thank you. And thank you for joining us for this important discussion. I hope you've gained more insight about the impact that COVID has had on the recovery community, but also understand that even during this pandemic, there continues to be help for those in need. I'm Brenda Schivito, and remember that you are not alone in the battle against the disease of addiction. If you or a loved one need help, you can come to our website, which is angelsagainstaddiction.org. Unfortunately, we will not be doing our in person fundraiser this September, but you can always go to our page and donate, because I believe that together we can save lives. Thank you so much.